Hey, everybody, welcome to Fire Engineering's Humpday Hangout, to our show, Issues and Challenges of Today's Fire Service. I'm Chief Rick Lasky, along with my buddy and Humpday Hangout partner and good friend, Louisville Assistant Chief Terry McGrath, and we've got another good one for you today. We always mention this as a reminder. If you have any questions, jump on Twitter and send them our way, and we'll do the best we can to answer them. We sometimes don't get to them all, but we do our best. Just make sure you add hashtag FE Talk, hashtag FE Talk, so we can track it a little bit. But today, Terry and I, and the boss will be joining us a little bit. That's Chief Bobby Halton will be here with us. But today, Terry and I are joined with a great guy and author of a book we're going to talk about today. And Mauro Porcelli, I said it right. Mauro Porcelli is the author of the book "Surviving the Firehouse," and we're going to get into that here in a little bit. But welcome, brother. Welcome to the show,
Chief. Thank you so much for inviting me. I think this is just awesome. I'm real excited to be here, and I couldn't wait for this hour to happen.
Well, and we're happy to have you. It's awesome, and Chief Halt was excited. He got a hold of Terry and I, and he's like, "Hey, we've got a great guest. We got a great thing. And I'm like, "Cool." And and the book obviously, and I had a chance to look at it. Came out great. But before we go any further, let's do this to give our viewers and those that'll be watching this. There'll be a ton watching this later on when it's taped that didn't get to it right now. But a little bit about yourself, brother, about your background and the whole fire service thing, and what got you to where you're at today.
Right. I joined the fire department right out of high school in 1988, and I started with Marion County Fire Department, and I was there for a few years. It was a great place to start out, great place to make a lot of mistakes and screw up until I eventually got my dream department, which was the city of Orlando. And then I finished up my career with the city of Orlando Fire Department, and where I retired a few years ago. And while I was there, I just I saw that there was a need to mentor rookie firefighters, and I started the project years ago. And I shelved it, started it, and I shelved. I'm like, oh, this is just a stupid idea. And then when my sons joined the fire department, I said, you know what, I really have to do this. And I finished it, and I'm just real excited about it. And I just wanted to share it with everybody.
Well, first of all, now you said your sons, plural.
Yeah, this is what's interesting. I have two sons and a daughter. My one son, Nick, he's 22. He's a city of Orlando firefighter. My other son, Andrew, he's 18 years old, just graduated high school, just finished EMT school, just finished fire college yesterday. Tomorrow is his first shift ever. He's 18.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
Hey, I'm on, you guys. I'm trying to get my camera to recognize me.
You've never looked better. What are you talking about?
You jackasses.
I couldn't get it out quick enough, Terry. I was trying, but you beat me to it. Welcome, Bobby.
I got no use for either of you.
That's what we heard. I saw an email on that,
Yeah.
just the other day. But so Bobby's with us, folks. He'll be coming on shortly with his camera. But and one of the things, Mauro, that's kind of fun when you said that is, and Terry, you and I've talked about this umpteen times on the show, how life changes when you have a kid that enters the fire service. You know what I'm saying? That all the, when you're a firefighter and you're an officer, you're going through the motions, you're doing your thing, and it's everyone goes home and you're taking care of each other. But and the story I like to share is, and Terry, it's one of your one of your guys that we had, Kenny Swindle, and Daryl Brown, who's the chief in Grapevine. I was one of our assistant chiefs, Mauro, at the time. In fact, when he left, Terry took his spot, promoted up into his spot. We drove, what was it, 3 hours out? I want to see where we were going, but we drove out a ways to watch his son they swore him in for it was his first career job. And we drove out there. It was a 45-minute stay. It was a big deal to us. We're in our Class A's. And then we drove back. And about a month later or 2 months later, Kenny comes into my office. And Kenny's a great guy. Still chief in Crum, right, Terry?
Yes,
Crum,
sir.
Texas. Kenny Swindle's a great guy who gets it, great chief. But 35-year captain. He sat down in my office, Mauro, and he had tears in his eyes, and he's kind of sitting there, and he's trying not to let it loose. And I'm like, "What's up?" He goes, and he finally opened up. He goes, "I'm scared for my boy." And I said, "What's up? What do you mean, Ken?" He goes, I'm scared for. I said, well, what do you mean? We were just out there. We saw him get sworn in. This is a job before he's at now. And he said, I said, what's wrong? He goes, well, I went out and rode out with him for the day, and I met his company officer. And he said, Chief, I'm scared for my kid. He goes, if he gets jammed up in a house fire tonight, I don't know if this guy could get him out. And everything kind of, you know what I'm saying? It's all of a sudden, holy cow, now, right? Now it's your kid that's crawling. You're worrying about who's crawling into a burning building with your kids. So things do change, doesn't it?
I think about that too. I mean, it's funny you bring that up. It makes me sick. It makes me sick. There's no doubt both my sons are going to be in good hands. There's no doubt in my mind. But in my eyes, they're still babies. They're still kids. And to know that he starts his first shift tomorrow, to know that my other son is working at a big city, it's scary because I remember what I went through and what I used to have to do in the times where I almost didn't come out. Now I'm thinking about my two boys, and they're doing that now, and one is doing it tomorrow. So those are legitimate concerns, and I get it. And I don't know if I'll ever get over that because they're still my babies. They're my sons, even though they're firefighters.
Well, and we've mentioned it. My buddy John, Chief Halton's got a son who's in the military. My son served. My buddy John Salka, when he's got a couple of Marines. One of them was over there, and I was kind of like, God, they're over there. You're in Iraq, then they're in Afghanistan, and then when my son deployed, I mean, I was watching everything on Twitter, which I know is not maybe healthy. I was just, what I'm saying, it was just, oh my goodness. So, but it does change and again, for our viewers out there, those that are watching this now or later on, start thinking about that. That's a big difference. There's a big, huge difference when all of a sudden now you're thinking about your kid crawling into a burning building now with some. It just changes everything. Terry, you guys really work hard at Louisville on the whole mentoring aspect of things, and probably one of the best mentor programs, one of the best orientation programs for young firefighters, one of the best things from the talk you guys give them, everything, the process. I think you got one of the best hiring processes, if not the best in the country. But I know that's something there because we missed out on hiring because of nepotism stuff. But there's the whole push is you need to be treating these guys and gals that are going to these buildings with you like they're your kids.
Yeah, I think absolutely. And kind of scanning Mauro's book here, it's funny when I'm looking at the chapter titles and then thinking about how you're relating to this is your kids in the fire service, because I think there's two interesting things that come out of what your book is about, I think, and that's, for starters, you as a father with kids that are entering the fire service, so you're going to do your best to raise your kids to be, contribute to society and be part of the solution and all the little, jazzy things that we can say. But at the same time, you also want to be, you've got a kid working in a department that you worked at. So you want that department to be everything and it meets his expectations or exceeds his expectations. So, you've got kind of both ends of the sword on this. And I think that's one of the things that gets preached to our people early on is that, first of all, it's our responsibility to make sure this place lives up to what your expectations are when you come through the door. And everything that you hear about us, providing it's all good, that's our job, is to meet that challenge. At the same time, we need you to step up and one of your later chapters in here talking about your legacy, but every single day you come to work, you need to be laying the groundwork to hand this place over to the next guy. And in your particular case, you're handing that over to your kid.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. And I guess when I started this project, I shelved it because I thought it was a ridiculous idea. It wasn't going to help anybody. Then when my sons went into the fire department, it made me really nervous because I didn't want them to make the same mistakes that I made. And I sure as heck didn't want them to make some of the mistakes that I saw a lot of other rookies make. I'm like, I have to do this for my sons. And I have to do this for other people getting into the fire department. And when I wrote the book, I had certain rules to myself that I had to stand true to. I had to keep it simple. I couldn't make the book too thick where firefighters wouldn't read it because, to be honest, we all have the attention span of a brick wall. So nobody's going to read a 600-page book. I couldn't make it too thin. It had to be just right. And I had to keep it simple. I had to keep it simple where it was easy reading, where it reads like it comes from a firefighter. And that way I could get the point across directly. That's why the chapter titles and the verbiage that I used. I mean, my editor, she had a field day with it. She went crazy, and she said, we can't put this, we can't put that. It's, no, you can't use those 4-letter words and this and that. So we had to do some creative editing, but I had to make it attractive where firefighters would understand it, because it's a problem out there with a lot of young kids getting into the fire department, especially their first year.
Well,
sorry, Chief, you know, a topic that seems to come up a lot too, and the Mark Richards, who works here and does our background investigations now, and him and I have kind of worked on this hiring process of where we're at now. But you know, one of the things that we collectively agree on, and Mark says it really well, is that there's so many people that failed as parents because, you know, whatever, it's a generational thing. It's millennial. It's they expect you know, whatever. You can put whatever tag you want on it, but it is our job to make sure that they understand what the expectations are. And it's our job to help them get there, not just to come in and say, hey, you know what, you let me down today. Right. Do better the next day.
Right.
And they come in and so the next day you tell them, hey, you know what, you let me down again. And so, but at some point in time, it's someone's responsibility to step in. And that's where I think that mentor position, that mentor role, I think it's absolutely crucial long-term to make sure that on the back end of this, that we've got a huge investment of every single individual that walks through these doors. And all of us have been around long enough in a fire station where every other word is rookie, and do this and do that, and don't speak, and no one asked you, and you have no opinions, because you got to earn your right to be able to have an opinion. And one of the messages I tell every one of our new guys is that the first day you start here, we put you on a truck, and we have very high expectations of you, and there's a high price of failure in this career.
Oh, yeah.
So if you have the mindset that you're not allowed to talk, and you're not allowed to contribute, and you're not allowed to be a part of something, I think that rolls off into critical incidents, and you escape on the other side of that on the good side because you got lucky, and not because that's the way. It shouldn't be that way. When people hit these doors, they should feel comfortable enough that they can fail, that they can make mistakes, and that someone, when the all kidding is done, someone's there to help them get through that and make them better.
Right, but unfortunately, we don't have a lot of that out there, and I hate to say that, because there's a lot of great people out there, but what I hated seeing were a lot of these new guys and girls coming on board, and immediately they would get a bad reputation, a bad rap, because they didn't do something right, they said something wrong, and instead of correcting them, we just jumped them and jumped them and jumped them. So I remember numerous times where floating out to a new station, or some guys floating in and like, hey, Porcelli, watch out for this guy. You know, he's a lazy butt and he's not good, this and that. I said, all right. Well, as the day progressed, I would get to know this person. We go out back, have a cup of coffee behind the station. It's the nicest guy in the world, smart as heck. There's nothing more that this person wanted than to do good, to be accepted, and want to do a good job for everybody. But a lot of times we never gave them that chance, because we would just hammer them instead of showing them what the right thing to do was. And you're going to screw up, because we think that these rookies coming on board, a lot of this stuff is common sense. Hey, he shouldn't sit in a recliner while the rest of us are watching a movie. He should be out there studying. He should be looking over the truck. He shouldn't be the first one in bed at night. He should be the last one in bed, the first one to wake up. Yeah, that's common sense to you and I that have been in the fire department forever and ever. That's not common sense to a new person. And then immediately, bam, their reputation is ruined. And I hated to see that, and it happened a lot. But it was our fault. It was our fault. It was part of my fault. And that has to change. And that's why I wrote this book.
And Bobby, you and I, we've talked on this with the show with Terry. Remember, we did the show, we call it the bullies and thugs. But, you know, the bullies and the thugs of the fire service and Facebook firefighters. One of the things we talked about, remember, was the new guy or gal walking in, and the days of sit down, stupid, shut up, you know, boot, all that stuff. Not to say you don't have to do some loud coaching once in a while, because we're not all fortunate enough to put people through an academy like you see some like an FDNY. But at the same time, I know you have always embraced the whole mentorship, the whole senior firefighter, grabbing a hold of the new guy and gal, explaining the way of the world to them and moving on. I know you're definitely against the, name calling and all the rest of that stuff. Gets us nowhere.
And I think Terry, just to echo what Terry said very well, and Mauro, that there's nothing. The old adage that there's no stupid questions, that should be on every fire station wall. Is there are no stupid questions. The only stupid question is the one you didn't ask. I mean, and you should feel respected when you ask a question like, hey, that's a good question, or and this is why. And occasionally something's funny, and it's okay to crack wise once in a while. And when somebody says something that's really like funny, or tell the guy to go get the bubble juice for the level, or then funny, get the left-handed monkey wrench because I'm left-handed. You know what I mean? And watch a kid go through a toolbox looking for a monkey wrench that's left or right. And which is that kind of stuff goes on, and I think that's fine. You know what I mean? But we ought to encourage people and compliment them and respect them and say, hey, that's a great question. And this is, okay, let's go over it again. And this is why we do it this way. And, maybe it's a purchase point, or maybe it's, why do we do this with this tool or that tool, or marrying the tools, or, why would you carry this, or why do you carry that, or what do you do? And I think there was years ago, a good buddy of mine, put out a humorous poster meant with good intent, albeit with the best of intents, about shut up and train, didn't shut up and train, and it's a great deal. But I would change the shut up and train line to ask a question and learn. Ask a question and grow. Ask the question and it's human nature. There's what they call the dominance hierarchy. It's in every species. Animals do it. We do it. Everybody's trying to move up the food chain, and when you start off and you're at the bottom, that's a tough place to be, man. That's a really tough place to be, and the more comfortable and the faster we can help people get the sense that they're not at the bottom, the better. And I think just the fact that they show up means that they're not at the bottom anymore in my book, regardless if it's their first day, first minute in rookie training class, and they don't know anything. I mean, I feel that way oftentimes when I'm sitting in programs and somebody's talking about some high level stuff, and I'm like, wow, man, I'm freaking close. I pick up books all the time where I'm like, okay, I got to reread that chapter, and I got to reread that chapter. I better call somebody and get them to explain this to me. And it might not be about firefighting. It might be, me. I'm surrounded by books all the time, and I always feel inadequate, which I think is normal, right? But if we exacerbate, if we increase a person's feeling of inadequacy, then it becomes a syndrome. And so, I can't remember exactly who said it. It was a retired, I believe, naval officer. But if you treat people like idiots, they'll act like idiots. And duh, right? And the other thing too is that we tend to hit what we aim at, right? So if we look for bad, and if we look for evil, and if we look for stupidity, and if we look for denigration, and if we look for bullies, we'll find them. You know what I mean? But if we look for great role models and great mentors and great senior leaders and great, firefighters and great people, we'll find them too. And I'll tell you what, they outnumber the bullies and thugs about 10-1.
Well, Bobby, we talk about, right, the future of the fire service, and then we have people that stomp on them. And I don't think anybody was that. Like Terry said, I know how they embrace things in Louisville, how you did in Coppell when you were chief, and what you've done with everything with the whole fire engineering, FDIC, everything else. I don't think anybody was that smart when they first walked into the firehouse. And again, I kind of like how Mauro's book runs the chapters, kind of walk you through. The firehouse culture, and I know what he's saying by that. You and I've talked about it. I throw up in my mouth every time I hear somebody say the culture of the fire service, because it's usually some nonsense instead of real life.
It has nothing to do with culture, right? It has to do with some kind of abhorrent behavior, right? Well, the culture of the fire service is that we beat up people. No, it's not.
No, it's not. No.
The culture of the fire service is about kindness, respecting human dignity, sacrifice, and honor. I mean, and those are like underlying principles, and that's people, the culture. Yeah, occasionally we say stupid stuff. Yeah.
They don't like the word tradition because they want to say, well, you know, it. And I'm like, I don't like the word tradition when it's tied to. It was one of the articles I did for you when it's tied to doing stupid stuff. I love the word tradition when it's tied to those who've committed to their life, a life to one of selflessness, to one of serving, the one that the reason why we're in all the toy aisles, with all the toys and in all the kids' books and stuff, and that they don't, like we said, they don't point to the delivery truck, they point to us. And Mauro,
you know what? I'm gonna bring in a guest for a minute if he'll stop in. I'm gonna bring in a guest who I think could speak to a real culture. Stand by.
Okay.
And I'm not going to put on some silly costume. I'm actually.
Oh, he's got his pants on this time. That's nice. It's that commercial, guys. You know the commercial on TV today right now where the guy's sick and he's doing the meeting from home and he sneezes and his laptop falls and he's wearing his coat tied with his underwear. But well, let's do this. We're waiting for Bobby to come back in. Mauro, let's jump. I want to ask you, second chapter, word of warning, attitude. I think I know where you're going with this from what I've read. Talk to our viewers about. Well, hang on a second. Hang on. Hold on. We'll get to that one in a second. Now that Bobby's back. So
streaming live on television.
Good deal.
Pull up a chair. I got a chair.
Yeah, I recognize this guy from Twitter.
Gentlemen,
I've been cloned.
still here.
Is this the legend drama?
This is Lieutenant Commander Dean Drama Halton, United States Navy.
Legend might be a little liberal, but
your dad
well known
did
in
that.
certain circles.
Your dad did that for you.
Well, big shoes to fill.
So we got our partner on here with us, Mauro, who's this guy in this little box here. He's an retired Orlando firefighter who wrote a book about going through the system, right, and how we bring people into the system. And I always use your quote when I'm talking in our leadership classes. Yeah, there it is, Surviving the Firehouse. Of course, Mauro didn't send me a book, but I'm not going to go there.
Fair.
I never got one. I don't know why.
Peter didn't get his either.
I'm just saying, Ricky got one.
Bobby,
I don't know.
He said he's working
That's
off.
the kind of busting that's
I'm
okay.
taking care of that today because I sent Peter one. He said he never got it, so I'm going to send you another one.
Bobby, he said he's working off a limited budget. So when I'm done, I said Terry sends it to you, and then.
So here we have. So it's fascinating, right? So I always use the quote that you laid on me about you got to know if you want about leadership, and you said, and I'm paraphrasing here. There's three things you need to know: 2 to survive, and 3 to thrive. The first one was know what's expected of your people and what they're going through, or you don't know what you're doing. That's the best line of all. The second was be a good pilot. Know your shit, otherwise you'll be dead, and any argument to the contrary is moot. And then the third one was be a good dude. But being a good dude and knowing your stuff, those are I think those are absolutely critical. But being a good dude was your optional one. But you got to know what your people are going through and what's expected of them. And I think that's what the other part of that we're talking about here is you got to let them know what to expect as well. So, and I think that's all part of the expectation stuff, and that's what we're talking about today.
Absolutely. I think that the paradigm has shifted largely from the whole idea of don't teach the test. So that swung too far in the pendulum, at least in my very limited experience outside of the fire service, to the test is going to be secret. And I think that's kind of ludicrous. If you show up in finals and pick your profession or your trade, and you have no idea what you're going to be tested on.
They can hear you.
Sure, the first order effects there are, you have a disgruntled phone calls coming in. Firefighter, but the third and order effects that no one wants to acknowledge is you just poisoned the culture. You said the expectations are amorphous. You can't win. You're damned if you do. You're damned if you don't. And the whole idea of, well, if you teach the test, then you're corrupting it. You're making it too easy. I said the test should be easy enough that you know the expectations in and out, and you can take it on any given day. That's how you know you've streamlined your expectations throughout the whole organization, and that you have buy-in and commitment from that organization, because anyone can pass a test on any given day. The idea is not that the test is too easy, it's that everyone understands what's expected. If you can get the job done, get it done efficiently, you can improve on the process. But I think the whole secretiveness of it is it's a challenge that I'm working through right now in the military. Well, hey, it needs to be a surprise all the time. Well, that's dangerous. That's dangerous. Not because of the first order effects. A little disgruntledness isn't going to hurt anybody, but you poison the well. You send a signal that there's no reason to buy in. Just keep your options open. Look for another job elsewhere.
Great message. Great point.
It's true. It's so true.
Great point.
Don't you think when we brought up the word culture, which is used in the wrong context, but to me, there is a cycle out there, and it's breaking the cycle, because this whole rite of passage thing, and I think that's where a lot I'm quite certain the military is still doing it. Fire service still does it, because you come in at the bottom, you are here, and because 25 years ago, this is the way I was treated, this is the way I'm going to treat you. And so we have this whole rite of passage, because sometimes you hear things like these benchmarks. We make someone accomplish a benchmark, and you ask yourself, what exactly is it you're doing? Like, I don't understand the benchmark. Well, that's what I had to do. I'm thinking, all right, well, maybe we should stop and figure out what the cycle is here, and realize that we're doing things not for the right reasons. But the main point of all of this is that on the end line of this, we want people to be successful. And that is our job, is to prop them up and make them successful. Chief Lasky says this brilliantly, is that when your child hands you a hand-drawn picture at 2 years old, and they've taken a crayon and scribbled 4 colors on a piece of paper, where does that picture go? It goes on the fridge. And you tell that child, that is awesome. It's the best picture I've ever seen. You don't tell them, like, what's wrong with you? Like, I don't even know what that is.
Right.
So, and it's funny, because we won't do that for a 20-year-old when they walk into a fire station, or they're trying to accomplish something that honestly is very difficult, very challenging, and you've got all the stress, and so we beat them down instead of build them up.
I think to Terry's point, real quick though, it's the old adage: if you follow an ugly kid home, you'll find ugly parents.
Right.
I would.
True.
Go ahead, Mauro.
One of the things that always bothered me also about the fire department is the hypocrisy. Somebody asked me not that long ago, what do I think is the biggest danger, the biggest problem that the fire department is going to run into in the future? And it's not management. It's not City Hall. It's not the mayor, county administrator. It's not budget cuts. It's us. We are our own worst enemy in the fire department. And I'm going to tell you why. It's the hypocrisy that goes on. It's not rampant. It doesn't go on all the time, but it's there. And it's a cancer to the organization. And I'll give you a prime example. You can't sit there at the dinner table with me and preach camaraderie, brotherhood, holding hands, singing Kumbaya. And if you need me, brother, I'm right there for you. And then when I leave the room, or this person leaves the room, you're bashing him to make yourself look good, because you're trying to get a promotion, you're trying to get that special truck assignment, heavy rescue assignment, or that special station assignment. And this goes on a lot. So when somebody asks me, what is the biggest danger that the fire department faces? That's what I see. It's self-destruction from within, because of the hypocrisy that some people are causing at the firehouse to benefit themselves, to put themselves first before the organization. And management, or the station lieutenant captain, has to see these people, and they have to put a stop to that. You just can't have that.
Well, and Terry, you remember Claude King. You remember one of the things he used to talk about, our city manager in Louisville, was, he goes, I love our firefighters. He goes, but you guys are cannibals. He goes, I mean, he goes, that's the one thing I don't think you figured out yet, is how to play nice, and how to, pool your resources, and that incredible power of one team together. law enforcement's figured that out a long time ago, how to do that. Yet we work against each other. And I say that there's a point in the class where I talk about that, where I don't know how you can be standing at Home Depot, showing off your tattoos and your T-shirt and talking about, yeah, I'm one of America's bravest, and then be at the firehouse the next day, trash talking, cutting each other's throats. And it's one thing to say, hey, we're faster than eights at getting the first line into structure. They're slow because they don't train, stuff like that. But it's one thing to be nasty ass, just like you said, that cutthroat kind of mentality. And I'll go back to it. It's all about leadership. If you got company officers, if you have bosses that allow that in the firehouse, that don't put I talk about in class all the time. Bill Allen, my lieutenant, there's 10 to 15 of us on duty. He'd come out of the office and he'd go, look, I have a headache. I've been listening to you guys for an hour. Can you change your course? Can you stop, or he'd come out and go, let's go. Pre-plants, everybody on the rig, let's go. And he just he let us talk, but he was the boss. And instead of hiding in the office, instead of hiding behind the trumpets, the collar pins, we need more leaders to step up and say, look, or to have have those conversations. You go, hey, Rick, come here. Dude, you're like one of my senior guys or gals. You're supposed to be the person controlling that. You're supposed to be the referee, not contributing to it. And it's really all about, I think, who's running the show in that firehouse, in that company, that's going to, be the referee. Someone's got to be in charge. Someone's got to be in charge. You're not up there to just my buddy John says, you're not up there just to beep the horn, but,
So I think to Ricky's point, and there's a couple of things. First of all, we're talking about human nature. And if we think it's exclusive, go turn on the Housewives of New Jersey and whatever one isn't there in the room, or The Bachelor, or any of those other. I mean, it's kind of human nature that people tear other people down to make themselves feel good. But the other thing is that Ricky's talking about, which is kind of cool, like the dog handlers call it down lead, right? And if you ever see a young dog handler show up at
McGrath.
Yeah, you see it. Well, you see a young dog handler show up at an event, or an old dog handler show up at an event, and the cops say, hey, we got a bad guy in the building, and the old cop says, hang on, I'll go get my dog. And he walks over to the car kind of slowly. He opens the door. Hey, come on, dog. The dog gets out. They walk over kind of slowly and look at you. The dog goes, woof. And then they go into the building and try to get the bad guy. You see a young dog handler who shows up. What do you got? What do you got? And then the guy says, well, there's a guy, but hang on, I'll get my dog. I'll get my dog. Yo, go, God, come on, dog, come on. The dog, that dog will bite your ass because he's taking that handler's thing and it's going down lead to that dog, and the dog's reacting to the handler. It's the same thing with the company. If you meet a really mellow, smooth company officer, you got a mellow, smooth company. If you meet a guy who thinks the sky is falling and he's upset all the time and he's apoplectic about, it's the freaking end of the world as we know it, that dude translates that stuff down lead, and that's the company you get, or a bully or a thug or and it's transitory, right? I mean, it's not every house. It could be one house and it can spread. And sometimes it gets really, really bad in a unit and you got to jump in and say, hey, cut it down. But hey, anybody in this conversation right now who hasn't talked about somebody else outside of the room, raise your hand. I'll send you $100.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And I'll call you a liar.
You're
I'll
right.
still send you $100 because we all do it.
Right.
But it's like getting it to where you're not doing it all the time, and it's not like the unit's, national pastime is bashing, because I think that there's a certain amount of human nature. But who was it? Hemingway, who said, there's nothing noble about feeling superior to your fellow man. There's only nobility in feeling superior to your former self. And that go on Twitter and you'll see that go, come to the greatest fire class in the world put on by me. Okay.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Those are the guys, like I said, that post the pictures, that they're honored and humbled to have received, and they have a picture of their award sitting there. I can understand. I have no problem to say, hey, I was honored to receive an award from, the Louisville Fire Department, Penwell, but you start throwing the word humbled in there, yet you're bragging on Facebook about the award you just got. I think
Ricky, the thing I'm proudest of is my humility.
And, when I did my author bio, I did not want to do that author bio. I pushed back on it big time. I did not want to do it. But I was told, you really have to do this. I said, I really don't want to. It's not who I am. Nobody cares. It is what it is. But I lost. We had to put my author bio in there the way it's described. And once the book came out, I was receiving phone calls and like, my God, I didn't know that. I said, well, yeah, thank you. And I left it at that. But yeah, I agree with you guys. It's just about humility and being humble about things. If you did something great, hey, good. But you don't have to tell everybody because they probably already know.
Well, Mauro, we started talking about this early on. And I think the timing's perfect for it. Chapter 2, word of the warning, attitude.
All right.
Talk to our viewers about that. Your message.
The biggest thing that I saw, especially with these young kids coming on board, and I say kids, I mean, if you're younger than me, you're a kid. I'm 50 years old now, but a lot of these young kids coming on, I just feel like that they think we owe them something. And we don't owe them anything. They came to us for a job, and now it is our responsibility to mentor them and to take it from there. But when you come on to this job, you asked for the job, we gave you the job, and you need to come in with a good, positive attitude. Unfortunately, there's going to be people around these guys that are going to have bad attitudes, and then they inflict their wounds on the new guy, et cetera, et cetera. But you just have to come in with a good, positive attitude. Yes, it's okay to ask questions. It's okay to take part in the conversation, but you can't be the center of attention for the 24-hour shift that you're there. You still have to be humble. You have to keep an open mind, know when to talk, but just be humble. Just be humble, and great things will happen. These kids are coming to the fire station. Well, why don't I have my own bed? Because you've only been here for 2 shifts. Well, why do I have to work on that rescue truck when I should be on the engine or on the tower truck? Because this is your 3rd shift. That's why. And this is just sense of entitlement. And then all of a sudden they develop this bad attitude, and it just explodes out of control, and you've just lost a good employee if he doesn't get corrected immediately.
Well, and we've talked about it, Bobby, when you and I were chiefing it, and Terry, you guys do it, I know for a fact in Louisville. We hire all different generations. People wear out the word millennial. I think we've hired some incredible millennials. Have we had people come in and say, why do I have to mop? Remember, Terry, why do I have to mop and scrub the floor? Why is that a rookie thing? And I'm like, it's not a rookie thing as much as it's you're coming in here and proving to us just how bad you want to be here.
Right.
You need to come in and show to the rest of us how we've all done it. Show us how bad you really want to be here. You won the lottery. This is the greatest thing in the world. Show us how bad you want to be here. This isn't, you're cleaning our home. You're cleaning the toilets in our home. You're doing it. Everybody's done their time with that. Come in and show us. But in the absence, and Bobby, I know you used to have the talk with your new guys. In the absence of that first talk, and then, well, and Dean, we do a lot of classes for the military, and I talk all the time about boot camp and how it's not brainwashing. They strip you down of your individuality at boot camp, and they build you back up into believing something special. And those are your core values, and it doesn't stop there. It goes on and goes on and it goes on to and that's why when you look at what a sailor believes in, like you and my son. When you look at what a Marine believes, that's why Semper Fi is so important to a Marine. Those aren't just words on a tattoo. It's not just what the sailor's creed. I had a World War II FMF corpsman like my son, but World War II sit next to me on the airplane. Bobby, you heard me tell a story before, and he can recite the sailor's creed, and he did it with tears in his eyes because it meant something to him. And when we don't sit down with new firefighters their first day and explain to them why we exist, why we're here, and then someone else does, it's not just a one-time talk. It's just, I think, and Mauro, we're missing that. You're exactly right. We're missing, Terry, you mentioned it, that first talk is like you're opening up the door to all the rest of the talks that are going to happen. Not the yelling, not the screaming, just this is how this works. This is, if you want entitlement, go work for Subway. They'll give you a uniform. You can put a little name tag on. You can make sandwiches all day. Hallelujah, great job. No offense to Subway, but this is the fire service. And again, they point at us, not the delivery truck. And and I think when it speaks to core values, just look at how the Navy does things.
Well, gentlemen, in my limited experience, particularly with the younger sailors, the I-generation is just about to enter the ranks. 18 years since 9/11, and I've taken a step back from the idea that anyone has an entitlement mentality. But if you look at the larger context of how we are educating kids coming out of high school, they're not asking why in the sense of, well, I don't need to clean toilets. I don't need to. They've been trained to say, you need to say why. You need to say why. Where's my buy-in? And that should be a signal to leadership that you haven't set bumper lanes. You haven't set expectations, and the process really hasn't been explained, because as much as people want to believe that there is buy-in right away, we're there for a paycheck. No one's showing up when you say, hey, there's not going to be any dental, there won't be any retirement, we might pay, we might not. So let's be honest, there's an incentive structure, and you're going to have careerists and you're going to have professionals. So if they're saying why, they want to know the system. Hey, if I clean the toilets, is everyone else going to be laughing? Look, we can amuse and use that guy. He's dumb enough to think we care about him cleaning toilets. Or is he saying, okay, how many wickets do I need to hit in order to promote early? Because I've got 3 kids, 2 ex-wives, and quite frankly, I'm just worried about getting evicted next week. So I think it's not, I've taken a step back from immediately assuming that there's a entitlement mentality, with the understanding that people are growing up now with social media, and it's widely understood, if you don't control your own narrative, someone else is going to spin you into a box. So they're trying to control the narrative, and it's on leadership to set expectations. And if there's not an in-doc program that makes it very clear that this is how we get buy-in, this is how we're doing business, you're going to get a lot of whys. And it really comes back to, if you're only looking at the battle damage of the planes that come back and not the battle damage of the planes that never came back, you're looking at the wrong data points. Right. That's been why.
And that's the Abraham Wald story. We were talking about that a couple of days ago, fixing the wrong holes. So oftentimes we put our energy on the wound and not the cause of the wound. And so the in-doc stuff that we do, because as Dean was saying, we don't all share the same worldview. I mean, it's tainted by 2 ex-wives being evicted, all of that. Whereas cats like us, we're not in that realm, right? So you can't assume that everybody knows what you or thinks or believes what you know and think and believe. And it's clear expectations, understanding motives, and then understanding conflicting worldviews and conflicting goals is a big part of making a good in-doc, right? Because everybody's got motives, right? Everybody's got a motive for being at work, and a lot of it, some of it's recognition, promote, get up, but part of that recognition is going to make it easier to meet those demands that are on you, either physically or financially. And so and that's kind of interesting, right? How much effort do we put on in-doc for the new person versus in-doc for the new officer versus in-doc for the new supervisor of officers, for the new manager of supervisors of officers? And so as we go through the system, right, whether your system starts off with engineers and senior men and battalions and lieutenants and captains, there's got to be an in-doc, if you will. And we call them company officer academies or chief officer academies. And those are kind of hard for the smaller orgs to do, and so there's lots of great companies out there that are doing training. It's interesting. I got a call the other day from a great friend of mine who's up in Oregon. And he contacted me just 2 days ago about a mentoring class, who was doing a specific mentoring class. And I said, I don't know that anybody is, which is interesting, because that's all really what we've been talking about, right? Because in the absence of a formalized in-doc, you've got to have people who share a similar worldview and understand motives and understand how to help people achieve what they're trying to achieve through the system that we need them to work through, more or less, right? With the Navy, it's learning how to operate your weapons and maintain your ship and maintain your aircraft and all that good stuff. In the fire service, it's maintaining the firehouse, maintaining the equipment, maintaining the skill set that we need for you on the fire ground. And inside of that, we help you meet, taking care of your family, buying the toys that you want to buy or the things that you need to survive, and meeting those other goals in life, self-actualization, all that other good stuff. So it's kind of a fun thing to talk about, but it's fascinating to me. So I went online to kind of Google mentoring programs out of our system. You know how many people are doing classes on mentoring at FDIC under the term mentoring? 0. But in terms of leadership and all the other ancillary aspects of it, dozens.
Well, and there's a lot of people, Bobby, I saw, because I'm getting ready to. I have 2 more videos to do the Mentor Monday program we're going to do for you on Mondays. Mark did the whole lead-in, the whole video lead-in for me for Mentor Monday. It used to be a written thing. Now it's going to be a video, a quick 10, 12 minute about certain mentors and why, and different areas, and I won't get into now how to hit all that. But you're right. I mean, and a lot of people talk about mentoring as part of their leadership program, and I think they have to push the leadership, because I think that's going to be the more popular too. And I'm like, golly, man, I sometimes I think I spend more time bragging about my mentors and the impact they had on me in my life than I think I do about the content that I'm pushing out there sometimes. Because and this happened, Mauro, in Ohio. We were doing a company Officer Academy, and I looked at the front row and I said, okay, and I just out of the blue, I said, who's your mentor? And he looked at me. I go, okay, so who's your mentor? Who's your mentor? And I felt bad because I felt like I kind of set him up. Like, how could you sit there and not be able to go, Eddie Enright? My mentor is Chief Eddie Enright for Chicago, or Jet, let alone in life in general. And I think some people have to think about, because they don't think of, they're always wearing a mentor name tag. That my name's mentor, But at the same time, Bobby, I think it's something we're missing.
And I think to your point, Mauro, and to Rick's point, and I've read through the chapters. I went online because I didn't get Mauro's book, but
I don't know how I screwed that one up. Heck, you're the only reason why I'm here.
Bobby, when I'm done with this,
my bad, Chief.
Bobby, I already signed it to you, Bobby. I already signed it to you. So when I'm done with it, I sign, and then Terry will sign it to you.
Is that in his name? Is that in Chief's name?
It's Bobby's name. No, I'm kidding.
Okay.
So, all kidding aside, though, I think to the greater point, to the folks that are listening, you might have. I have hundreds of mentors that I look at in different fields. Like, I'm reading McChrystal's book right now, and I think McChrystal's new book, Leaders, is a great book. His book, Team of Teams, is a great book. But I don't agree with everything that Stanley McChrystal believes in. I read books by people who I believe the exact opposite of their political or social views, but I still agree with them on certain other things, and I consider them mentors in the way that they carry themselves, the way they present their information. I mean, you're going to have in your life, if you're trying to be like just one person, pick Jesus Christ, because he nailed it. I mean, he's the guy that you ought to be looking at, right, as the archetype, right? There's always that archetype, and he's the archetype of goodness, right? And all that good stuff. And then if you want to look at, people, but we assume that some people are the archetype of everything, and nobody is. I mean, Will Rogers said it best: we're all ignorant, just different subjects. And we could modify that as to, we're all good mentors for certain aspects of life, but certainly not for all of them. I mean, I've had a lot of great mentors who were horrible drinkers, and that's a terrible road to go down, who just drank too much. And then I've had great mentors who were mean, and I've had great mentors who were, but there were other aspects of what they did that were absolutely wonderful. So I think that you can, I think, and I'd love to know, I think you can have dozens of mentors at the same time.
I absolutely believe that, and the list is just endless. The people have impacted my life and my career, which I wanted Mauro to jump on real quick here, Bobby and Terry. Dean, is you talk in your book also about, and I think this is something we miss out with a lot of young firefighters. Ever since 9/11, New York City makes their probies do a journal. They have to do a journal from day one, and we've missed out. Saying, God, can you imagine if, Bobby, if 40 plus years ago you did a journal where you had everything recorded your first fire and all this stuff and so on and so forth. Okay, I mean, it would just be, it's just.
See the bottom? It says being George Washington.
But right, I mean, just being able to do that, and then be able to talk to people about their career. You talked about later on, or career time management, short and long term plans. I think a lot of young firefighters. I saw this in Illinois. They were in such a hurry to get through Firehouse. They wanted Fire Officer 1, which at the time was 5 classes. You had to do 5 40-hour classes. Then they hurried up to get, and then you'd have a guy that's got 5 years in a job that has, 5, 10, 15 sets of classes already, just to hurry to get that final certificate instead of really thinking about why those are required and what that does for his career. So talk about that too.
One of the things that I laid out in the book is, like I said, career time management. You hear a lot of people, as soon as they get hired, they're like, I cannot wait to be a lieutenant on the engine. I can't wait to be a chief in the department, to be a district chief, a battalion chief. And they want to do it as soon as possible, as quick as possible. You want to lose respect from most firefighters, promote up through the ranks quickly, because you're not going to get it. In order to be a good lieutenant, a good engineer, you have to screw up at the lower levels before you get to that level. In order for you to become a good chief officer, you have had to have made all those screw ups that a lot of us make. So that way, when you're in charge of these people and you see their same screw ups, you get it. You understand it. You're not going to move the goalposts every time you come to work. And the only way you can get this is not by taking classes. There's so many firefighters. They have every class in the book, degrees out the yin yang. They have everything. Beautiful, smart people, but they don't have the people experience. And that only comes with time. Take your time to promote, become the best firefighter you can. And after that, take the engineer's test, take the company officer test, whether that be lieutenant or captain. And then once you're in your teens, 15, 16, 18 years on, you want to test for a chief's position, go ahead and do that. But these people need to remember, when you're up there in the chief's ranks, your job security is smaller and smaller and smaller. And guess what? Everybody now is looking onto you. And now you lose the whole fire department brotherhood concept where you're not at the dinner table anymore. Now you're part of administration. Now you have your own bosses, and that boss is the mayor and the city manager, and things change, and they change quickly. So if you want to move up through the ranks, that's great. It's admirable. Everybody should if that's what they want to do, but do it in a timely manner. And that's why I laid out that time frame. The time frame I laid out is very subjective. And like I said, it'll make for a great argument at the dinner table, but take your time. Just take your time getting there.
Oh, exactly. And
I would add to Mauro's point real quick, Ricky, go through the system. Don't skip a step, because I find it amazing how many people today I meet who went through basic firefighter and then suddenly go somewhere and they're a chief officer or a captain or something. And I'm like, dude, there's and I'm not going to put everybody's different in their learning curve based on how experienced, how busy their system is, right? So I'm not going to say you got to do 2 years or 5 years or 6 years. That's up to the system. But if you're in a system, I say touch every base you can, touch every base that's required, and don't take any shortcuts, because I personally, I think that's not good.
Right? No, it's true.
Hey, Chief.
Hey, buddy.
Hey, I don't want to derail this, but I do have a question for Dean, because I hear that the Navy aviators, you're getting your nickname based on something. It's always a story. And so every time I meet anyone who's a Navy aviator, I just want to know the story.
It should be good.
Well, it's very simple. You earn your nickname early on when you're young and green in your first fleet squadron, right? So fleet squadron, think of it your first firehouse. You're actually going on calls. You're out of the academy. The training wheels are off. That's where you're going to get your call sign. If you gentlemen think back to the what was it, 8-9 years ago, there were a couple of TV shows that were popular. one that had just hit the streets was
12 years ago.
Yeah, so hit
Entourage.
Entourage was popular, and there was a series called Archer that was very popular too. And they decided that you couldn't have a call sign that was as cool as Archer, but the comic relief, goofy, slapstick brother in a group of 4 guys, that fit me pretty well. So I became Johnny Drama from Entourage. And I said, you know what, drama's pretty good for me. I'll take it. Given some of the other call signs that are much less flattering, I said, absolutely. I'm going to own that one.
If you meet a cat that's got a flattering call sign,
it's an acronym for something that's not.
Yeah, exactly.
You keep that the rest of your career, correct?
Oh, yeah. You just own it. Doesn't matter how much you like it or don't like it. Own it.
It's stamped on the side of your plane.
You can't say, guys, could you give me another one like Spartacus or something? It doesn't work like that.
Oh, yeah. If they're calling you Spartacus, there's a reason for it.
No one's calling you Spartacus. If you're trying to sell it, nobody's calling.
Yeah, or Gropagus. That's not the name you want. Yeah, or Maverick. Yeah, right. So Archer, if you've ever seen the Archer cartoon, originally he reminded them of that character in the Archer cartoon, but Archer is just way too cool a name.
Too cool. You can't.
Right. Drama is, just say, what's your name? Drama. Because it's embarrassing. Right? One of the captains, I think the captain of the Enterprise is a former aviator. His call sign was Weasel. And when you're on the ship, people go, "Good morning, Weasel." And that's his call sign. And he's like proud of it. You got
to own it.
Yeah. Morning, Weasel. Good morning, whatever. And then you carry on, right? So it was funny because I'll meet young sailors who've flown with Dean, and I'll say, yeah, my son's in the, Navy's an aviator. Oh, what's your son's name? Dean Halton. And so I said, drama? Oh, I know drama. They know all the pilots by their call signs. They don't have a clue what their names are. It's all call signs for the aviators.
For better or worse.
Yeah.
Better or worse.
So that's his story. Entourage. And Entourage is based off the Wahlbergs.
Right.
Mark and Donnie and their brothers. So it's the Wahlberg family.
All right. I'm not going to take a poll here at the Louisville Fire Department because I'm sure I've got a nickname, but
oh, you don't know it?
Oh, I don't want to know it.
We all got one of those names. Don't feel bad.
So I was the senator. Senator.
Well, I'd take that one, but
no, you wouldn't. Oh no, you wouldn't.
It's all about the context.
Oh yeah, trust me. Trust. It's all about the story behind the name.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, you got a new guest.
Oh yeah, this is Izzy.
Yeah, the beast.
It's Izzy. There you go. She's never far away.
There you go.
She's important.
Before you came on,
and of course, she's center stage.
We were talking. Mauro talked about Sarah's, our producer. Sarah's pooches were in the background, and yours, mine. We're all dog lovers, and then Terry. Terry had his bomb dog for years, and well, 2 of them. And I met one of his good friends that he went through training with ATF, is a deputy in Arlington, Texas. So we talked to Darren. I missed talking to him, but Terry, you and I used to say it. You want stress relief in the firehouse. Anytime, Bobby, you and I talk about it, I'd be having like one of those just shitty days, and I'd turn to look, and there'd be his lab, his bomb dog with the tennis ball in her mouth, like, okay, I know you're having a bad day, come throw the ball for me. They just, right? It's just, you talk about therapy dogs before there were therapy, peacocks and crap. Oh my God,
Well, I think every fire station should have a dog. And I'll tell you, Dean said the other day, he came home yesterday, and we were all happy to see him. And then he went outside for a little while to take a phone call, and he came back in. The only person that was happy to see him again was Izzy. every time you come in and out, Izzy's happy to see you.
That's because he's got the piece. What was that movie? with Jack Nicholson and Helen Hunt, as good as it gets. He always had the little piece of bacon in his pocket all the time for the dog to get the dog like him.
Bacon, always in case of an emergency. Yeah,
it works for me too. What's not to love about bacon?
Oh God! Hey, for our viewers, we've been visiting for the past hour with obviously some of our good friends here, and our special guest Mauro Porcelli, the author of the book "Surviving the Firehouse." Mauro, we always end our shows with two or three questions. Two questions here for our guests, and it kind of this is probably the best way to sum up what you've done with your book, because it would be impossible to go through the whole thing here in an hour. It's just there's some great stuff. I had a bunch of things checked off, and Bobby did, Terry did. But the first question would be, what advice would you give? We talked about the new firefighters, the new men and women coming on the job. What advice would you give? Somebody comes in and says, here's my son and my daughter. They're both thinking about wanting to get into fire service, and we're moving forward. What advice would you give to that person thinking about getting into this job?
That's an easy one. You have to stay clean. You have to stay clean. No smoking. And I'm talking about not only weed, but tobacco products too, because nowadays, at least in the state of Florida, you have to sign an affidavit stating you have not smoked, because we have the firefighter heart and lung bill here, where if you have heart or lung issues, it comes from the job. And no smoking, no drinking, watch your DUIs. You cannot get into trouble. No traffic tickets. Just please be careful. You have to live a clean lifestyle. It doesn't start after you get hired, because once you get hired, they're doing a huge background check on you. And they're going to check your social media accounts, take off all the pictures that you have on social media of you doing a beer bong, smoking weed, showing your cleavage, and anything sexually explicit. Take it off. If you don't want your mother to see it, you better take it off. Clean up your social media, clean up your personal life, and just live a good, clean lifestyle. And that's probably the biggest advice I could give a young kid. That
was always interesting when we talk about preparing for the role. Prior to when Terry McGrath, his role before assistant chief was division chief over bomb and arson, he did all the backgrounds and IAs, and he'd come down, sit with us on the interview day with the committee, which was 2 assistant chiefs, a chief, and a captain and a driver from the union, and he would go through the packets with the backgrounds. And Terry, a couple of times, you're like, well, this guy he looked great. If you read his Facebook page, America's Bravest, all this stuff, he goes, then I kind of crept backwards, start looking at his pictures, and he's naked, thrown up in the bathtub, and he's got, all kinds of other things we don't want to talk about on his show. And I'm like, that's really who we want representing our city, and who we want in our little daughters' bedrooms in town, taking care of our grandmas and grandpas. Like I said, there's a reason why we're in all the kids' books, and you have to bring something to the table, and that's called integrity, and that's called honor. And it doesn't just flip and happen because you sewed a patch on. It's something you have to bring to us to support what we're doing, because there's a lot of people who worked hard for the image of the fire department, the fire service, and don't, because one idiot, Bobby, you and I talk about, as much as we love our websites, I sometimes I click, I get nervous, I go, oh, please, please, please. Oh, another nitwit firefighter did something stupid, and as much as I hate seeing it, I think sometimes it serves as a reminder, don't be a dumbass. You got to, it's one of the things, that we've talked about. A piece I just submitted to Diane, you worked so hard to get here and you blew it. And Mauro, you've got a chapter that says, along the line about, off-duty, time, don't be an idiot, but don't lose the job you love. So many people work so hard to become a firefighter. They test all over, or they waited forever to get hired in their volunteer department, and they get there and they blow it. They do something stupid.
They take it for granted. They finally got their dream job, and now they take it for granted, and they realize, oh, nothing's going to happen to me because I'm here, and everybody loves firemen. And if I get pulled over because I'm drunk, well, cops and firemen, they're like this. They're really tight. You know what? I'm probably gonna be let go. No, you're not. There's no reason for anybody to get a DUI today with Lyft and Uber. If you're out with your buddies from the firehouse having a couple of drinks, get a ride home. Do not get. I can't tell you how many firemen I know that got DUIs.
Try it in New York City, Bobby. You know this. John talks all the time. He actually holds up the newspapers in class. You're an FDNY firefighter. You get hooked up for DUI tomorrow. You're in the paper. You're in the news. 1,000 plumbers got arrested, not one.
Right.
You're a firefighter. You're in the newspaper. So yeah. Okay. Second question before we close things out here today. What advice do you give to the new firefighter? You're sitting right now. You sit in the firehouse, and you got the kitchen table. All right, a dining room table, kitchen table, and that new firefighter walks in and sits down with you, what advice do you give to the new guy or gal who's on the job now?
I want that person to have the best attitude in the world, to be positive, to appreciate what he or her has at that moment, and just learn as much as possible. Just learn as much as possible. But just understand, not everybody's going to like you. You could be the nicest guy or girl in the world. Not everybody's going to like you. But just treat others like you want to be treated. Learn as much as possible. Have a positive attitude, a positive image. And I'm telling you, you will have a beautiful, beautiful career.
Outstanding. You know, and again, folks, if you get a chance, and we'll talk to them in just a second about how to go about getting it. The book's called Surviving the Firehouse, and there's a ton of great stuff in there. You know, we've been also blessed today that Bobby had one of his sons, one of the, you know, like My Three Sons, the song going through my head and everything. But Dean, you've been with the United States Navy for how many years now?
16 years in uniform, 13 years as a commissioned officer. It's been a good ride. And thanks for allowing me to be part of this, gentlemen. I hate to steal any screen time, but
no. Well, and there's nothing with that. I wanted to close out today by also asking you, because we had you, you know, Bobby. Obviously, he's like all of us. You know, he's an extremely proud father, and advice, same thing. You've got to you get to meet some different folks, and you're hanging with Dad, and all of a sudden there's a group of young firefighters. Let me do this. I'll paint this one for you. You're at a fire academy graduation. He just did the keynote for, and he turns to you and says, "What advice do you have for the new guys? What do you say to those new men and women that are entering the fire service?" The commander.
Entering the fire service is a greenhorn. I couldn't imagine, gentlemen. I think it would be poorly received if I was offering any advice. The fire service, if you're entering any organization, my advice is simple. It's laugh more. It's laugh more. If you're willing to smile and find some humor in what you do, in the serious and the absurd, because we all have that red tape and bureaucracy, you're going to find that you become a conduit for people are willing to speak to you. You'll know more about what's going on, and you'll also be identified quickly and easily by your superiors as someone that they can get along with. So you're going to set yourself up to be in a position to grow in the organization. So laugh more. It's just that. It's a good sense of humor, right? It's a positive attitude that was spoken to, and that's exactly it. That's simple. That's simple. Keep it simple, right? I drag my knuckles behind me just like everyone else in the Navy, and couldn't be happier about it. So smile and laugh.
Don't take yourself so seriously. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Bobby.
Exactly right. Take the job seriously, but not yourself so much. Right.
There you go.
Learn to laugh at yourself and find the humor. And so I would close with two things: is that as we go through life, we all have a lot of mentors, and the book talks a lot about that. You know, as I understand it, and then when I get a copy, I'll be sure to read it. but you know, look for the good in people and try to find out how you could get that into your life. But even, you know, I look at my son and my sons, and all of them have done different things. And I'll talk about Dean in particular because he's here. But the Navy is just like the fire service. There's times when your head wants to explode because it does such goofy stuff. But the mission is so critical. And, you know, I once heard a politician say that, well, if you don't do good in school, you'll end up in the military. It was John Kerry. And it was the stupidest thing he ever said. And I know he regrets saying it. But, you know, these are men and women who went through prestigious colleges like Dean went through Purdue, and with the goal of becoming a naval officer. And they could have had careers anywhere else making a lot more money. And yet they chose to serve their country for 20 years or 25 years, and then they'll come out and do something else. But that commitment to me is so sacred and so important, defending the freedoms that this nation stands for, in spite of all that they have to go through, constant movement, you know, goofy systems, politicians, social engineering, just all of that stuff. And we're going to experience that in the fire service as well. And the other thing that I think is really important for all of us to remember, especially for those of us in leadership roles, as we've been talking about here, is that every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. So you have to remember that we're not always hiring choir boys and girls from the glee club. We're hiring men and women who, are adventurous, are, kind of drawn to that kind of lifestyle. And then from time to time, they may have, done some goofy stuff, I mean, I don't want us to be hiring, mother rapers and father rapers. I don't want those people. But, clearly I'm not going to hold it against some poor kid who, 18 got drunk. Shocking. I mean, because I did. And thank God there were no cameras. You know what I mean? We all did. We all had. The saying is wonderful. Every saint has a past and every sinner has a future. And if you look at probably the most exalted writer in the Bible, in the New Testament anyway, St. Paul, he was Saul before he was Paul. And Saul was a bad dude, and he did kill people. He was a bad dude, and he had people killed, and then he became St. Paul. And I'm not saying we should hire killers. That's not what I'm saying.
I'm glad you clarified that. So
yeah, because somebody will quote me. Halton says we should hire killers.
And Terry's the only actual peace officer sitting on TV right now, so he could hook you up in a heartbeat. So
right, yeah, and Terry could give me a list of candidates. But but I think that this was a great conversation. I'm really looking forward to reading the book, seriously, Mauro. And thank you for sharing that with us.
Thank you, sir.
And thank you for sharing your time with us. And Ricky, as always, it's wonderful to see you. It's great for me to be able to spend a little time with my son home on leave and at Thanksgiving with his mom. And to everybody out there who was at work and on duty today, thank you for what you're doing and working through the holiday. And we sure do appreciate it. And sure appreciate Terry.
You made Terry's day. You made Terry's day by having your son on. I'm telling you right now. It was like he couldn't wait to ask that question. And
hey,
well, it's going to make him wear his flight suit, but he wouldn't do it.
Hey, you know what? Honestly, it warms my heart, Bobby, because every time drama talks, you sit back there and it's almost like you're fighting that smile and you can't even do it. And you're smiling. You got a lot to be proud of. Obviously, I know you, drama, because I follow your dad on Twitter, and so I see everything that's going on. But anyways, in all seriousness, thank you for your service. I appreciate that. And
absolutely, thank you.
Yeah,
thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate the hospitality of this circle today. So enjoy it. Best to you and yours for Thanksgiving. I hope it's safe and peaceful.
Well, thank you, and thank you, Dean.
Thank you.
And folks, again, Surviving the Firehouse, a rookie's guide to surviving the firehouse and fire department life by Mauro Porcelli. Mauro, if they wanted to get a hold of you or get a copy of the book, obviously Bobby, Dean, Terry, and I all have our copy, the one copy. But anyway, all kidding aside, I had to do it one more time. But if they want to purchase a copy or a signed copy or get a hold of you to come out and speak to them, whatever, what's the best means for both?
Amazon. My book is available on 60 distributors and spending 60 retailers to around 70 countries. And it's easiest to get it on Amazon, but there's a huge backlog right now on the book with Amazon. So really, if you need one right away, email me at survivingthefirehouse@gmail.com, and I can get you a book out that day. I'll sign it and send it out to you. If anybody just has any questions for me, just wants me to talk to them, come out and speak to them, I'll be happy to do that. Like I said, I've been retired from the fire department. I miss the fire department, and you don't know how excited I am to be here with you right now. This hour just flew by. This is great.
They always fly by. Terry actually had to he's being, I think, handed some fire marshal duties as well there, Bobby. But so he's got to be at City Hall for a meeting. So he was texting me going, I hate doing this, but I'm gonna have the book. So but again, survivingthefirehouse@gmail.com if they want to get a hold of you. For our listeners, our viewers, Terry McGrath is T McGrath at City of Louisville, and that's LEWISville.com. Bobby, I know it's not newer, but it is kind of newer email address for you.
Just the simplest thing for me is just Bobby Halton at Gmail.
There you go.
My Clarion events, you got to put a dot in between it, and everybody screws it up. And so, yeah, just Bobby Halton at Gmail, and then I'll send you my Clarion address and because it's a little wonky.
Bobby Halton at gmail.com. Okay, perfect. And then I'm at just go to prideandownership.com. It's got all my information on it. We appreciate you folks. We're all on Facebook and Twitter. Dean is on Bobby's Twitter account. So if you need anything from the commander, all you got to do is follow him there. But we've all got them all set up there. Our next show date is December 19th. Fire engineering always. Not only do they have the great radio shows at night, not only do they put out a great website, a great magazine, all things. And I've been with them since 1985, and with FDIC since '96. So proud of it. And that's my family. You can join Wednesdays, pretty much every Wednesday, unless something happened, and noon Central, just like we did today, and catch some great people, some great guests, some great information right here. All you got to do if you want to see them later on, it's just like the radio shows. You can watch any episode you want. Just go to the website, fireengineering.com, which you already obviously found, and you'll hit it. Okay. Again, our next show is December 19th. In closing, and I can say this very proudly today with one of our guests. In closing, Terry and I always ask you to please keep the men and women serving the armed forces in your thoughts and prayers. And remember, never forgetting means just that, never forgetting. Be safe and God bless. Thank you, folks.